The Cold Omaha Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Procedurally Generated. I'm Henry Bell, and joining me today are Tom Schreier and Brandon Bowling. 2016 has been a pretty crazy year in gaming with some amazing highs and some shocking lows. And so before we get started with our Game of the Year discussion today, I'd like to give a quick reminder to our listeners out there. This is a list based on the games that we were able to play this year, and we have not been able to play every single release. Some of your favorite games may not make it to the list, but don't worry, that just means we can play them next year. In the meantime, though, these are our opinions of our personal favorites from 2016. So without any further ado, let's get started. All right, so let's get things started with the best story or narrative. Our nominees for this category are Firewatch, Dishonored 2, Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, Battlefield 1, and Day of the Tentacle Remastered. So I can see here who all nominated these things. So I'm going to just kind of pick through these and let you guys tell me why you in particular enjoyed this game or if you think it should be on this list, because I can see now who has played everything. So first up, we have one of my picks, and I was the only one who played this one. This was Firewatch. So Firewatch was a uniquely appealing adventure game this year. I really enjoyed it. This was the game where you play as a park ranger who's out for the season, basically living up in a ranger tower, watching the forest. You're all alone for the entire summer, and it's your job to prevent forest fires and basically keep everything safe on the park. So like you're chasing away troublemakers.
So you're basically Smokey the Bear?
Yeah, kind of. And so it's just you all alone out in the woods, and you have one companion who you never see. You just speak to her. Her name is Delilah, and she is kind of a good guy, kind of a bad guy. She is a very interesting and well-written character who you learn about her history and her relationships with other park rangers that have come through the park. There's a great grand mystery that unfolds as the story goes forward. I will say I found it a little bit disappointing, but no need to spoil it. But I found it a little bit disappointing at the end just because there were some allusions to some greater things happening that unfortunately didn't really pan out. It ended up being a little more mundane than I had hoped, some of the explanations. But that said, definitely a game that everyone should check out. Definitely worth playing, and I think definitely deserves a spot on this list.
How many hours did you say this game was again?
I'd say it's somewhere between I think 4 and 8, depending on since it's a walking simulator, it really varies.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of optional stuff.
And there's something to be said if you come away from a story that's 4 or 8 hours long. Not that Brothers is very short and it's a good game, but that it kind of sticks with you. I do like the art style. Again, I haven't played this game.
It's a lot. It's actually one of the best walking simulators I've played because it's got a lot of interaction, which you don't get to see all the time, which really helps push that story forward.
And so I want to touch on that because that's the only issue I guess I have is that there's really not that there can be a great story between one person and someone they don't know, but it seems like the primary interactions is with this Delilah. What do you mean by interactions outside of that relationship?
With Delilah, you're radioing to her and talking about these situations that are happening and coming up and how to deal with them and what to do. She's kind of your boss, sort of. But there are other characters, but not, they're not major protagonists. They have less spoken lines. They're more about fleshing out the mystery. And then they also have some kind of fun tongue-in-cheek things. Like, I absolutely love the pet turtle you can find. He's pretty great. He's just sitting on a rock and you can pick him up.
Can't you equip him and stuff?
Yeah, he just chills with you. You can hold him in your hands. He's pretty great.
It's pretty good.
I mean, there's animals that show up. There's some teenagers who are total assholes. Yeah, I mean, there's a gaggle of characters, but I don't necessarily think you need a huge cast to have a good story or narrative. The whole theme of this is isolation and running away from your problems. So being alone is a huge, huge part of the game, and is a huge, huge part of the story.
Are you on your toes the whole time? Or is it something that you're more immersed?
It's got it's a leaps and or it's sort of a stops and starts kind of thing. Like it's it'll be like, you're just kind of padding along and the story's unfolding and it's interesting and it's compelling, and then like suddenly it'll be like, oh shit, the plot just thickened. Damn, like I gotta know what's going on here. And so then you're compelled until like the next kind of break in the action where you'll then kind of settle back into the regular, but you're always kind of on edge because you're just waiting for the next creepy thing to happen. Plus this game has a pretty great soundtrack that really conveys a lot of emotion for some of the scarier moments and some of the more tense moments versus the more relaxing kind of acoustic guitar sort of Oregonian sort of music that they play generally.
Makes sense.
I really enjoyed it. And I think since I'm the only one who played it, I'm willing to move on here, but I definitely think it at very least needed to be mentioned.
I didn't watch the whole thing.
There you go.
I mean,
it was really good. I actually really liked it. I was like, man, I should buy this.
I mean, considering it's a walking simulator, you basically have played it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And
I thought it was.
The first you watched was fairly thorough, but yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I thought it was a pretty great game.
Yeah,
things along though, because there's 8 categories. We have Dishonored 2, and I believe only Tom and I played this game. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, and this is basically my nomination for this. This is going a little outside the box here, but I really think in terms of, I understand the reviews, and I've read what people have said about this game, that it was, some people felt really a disappointment to Dishonored, which was a really good game, had a really concise story, had a great twist. I think the reason a lot of people picked up Dishonored 2 was because one had such a good story. But for a game that you can play 2 different characters, and for a game that you can play multiple different ways, I'm playing without powers. You can play with powers, low chaos, high chaos, kill everyone you want, kind of sneak through or maybe choke a couple people out. For a game like that, it really immerses you in it. I really feel that not only your character has a, as many first-person games are, your character really has a role in the world, but most NPCs, even non-enemies, do. I mean, obviously you have the ranks of the soldiers. You have. Go ahead.
I hear you. I'm going to be honest. I feel a little conflicted on that, only because, like, Dishonored 2 was fun for sure, but I kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of, like, story driving you forward. I wasn't, like, really anxious to get revenge on the villain whose name I can't even remember, which kind of says how much impact that made on me.
Was it Jingdosh? I mean, there's a few characters in this.
It's the female villain, the lead.
Oh, yeah. It'll come to me, but I know you're talking about.
This is kind of my point. I mean, I'll let you finish, but I'm just throwing this out there because we got to get started fighting with each other here. And I'm going to be honest. I did enjoy Dishonored 2. I thought they did a good job of world building, but I don't necessarily know that the story or narrative was particularly compelling.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up. It is bad that you don't know who the main.
It's like a flower name or something, isn't it?
No, it is, and I'm Delilah.
Delilah, there you go.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think in terms of what drove me through the first game, certainly it was a story. I wanted to figure out what the secret coup was, and then when they turn on you, why they turned on you, and then I kind of wanted revenge. Maybe my best argument here is that in some way, although that's a really well-told story, a really good world building, and I like the characters in it, it's a little bit simplistic in the sense that in this game, I actually feel like the story is kind of me. It's how I'm going through it, and that's kind of like giving someone a blank book and saying fill in the chapters. But
that's an interesting angle to come at it from. I can buy that argument. You're saying to you the story that's great is the story you've crafted with your character.
One, why do I care if people die? Why beyond just the achievement level, because it's difficult to do.
Do you feel bad if you accidentally kill someone, or you're in a situation where you have to kill someone?
I feel like I'm misrepresenting how I would go about that situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're saying you're role playing is what you're saying.
Yeah, and maybe it's kind of funny that it's a game that actually feels like, now maybe this is because I'm playing without power, so that's a big caveat, but I feel like I'm not that far above everyone else in the game. Like, I'm not that far above the guys working on the docks or the guy cutting up fish or whatever. I'm a dude, like, I guess it's a little bit, trying to say
you're just a bro, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a guy who would do what a guy would do if his daughter is in trouble. You're going to go out and try to fix it. And I think looking at it from Emily's side, I'd do this if I was a leader. I would try to get my power back. I would try to make things better for the places, the people, especially given that there's literally blood flies, cruising around, and there's dead bodies all over the place and whatnot. I'm doing what I would do if I was the leader of a country. I would try to make it better. Now, granted, probably not by stabbing people or shooting crossbows. But given the context of the game, I'm doing what I can. I do feel at least a sense of place, a sense of kind of quote unquote morality, if you want to call it that, or at the very least that what I'm doing is affecting the outcome of what's happening in the game. Now, best story or narrative probably doesn't strictly fit that, but in terms of, do I feel very immersed in the world? Is there some narrative there? Yes. I feel like part of story and narrative is place too, and I guess it does place very well.
Well, speaking of place, we have another game that I would like you to talk about a little bit, just because you talked quite a bit about enjoying the mystery going throughout it this year. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. How do you think that ranks on this list?
Oh, yeah, I want to hear what you have to say, because you put a lot of time into that, my friend.
Yeah, so let's start with this, because often when I write or when I talk, I start with the counter argument. The counter argument is...
Try not to... You can, go ahead and make your argument for. We'll provide the counter argument.
Right.
Yeah, think of it like the first Assassin's Creed. Like, you attack, I counter, and then you keep on doing that until somebody dies.
Exactly.
All right, I'll lay out my argument here. First of all, when Dishonored 2 came out, I played this game less. In fact, not very much. But while it was out on its own, I was very excited for it. The same reason I was excited for Dishonored 2. I loved the story of the first game. I think it was actually my game of the year. God, this was maybe when we first started in the podcast way back when. But, or at least the game I played the most that year, because we didn't start in 2007. Sure. But
right.
But either way, I really enjoyed that game. I liked the story provided. I love the dialogue. This game, the dialogue's great. What would bring me back in a game that the environments aren't as good, it doesn't feel as organic as Dishonored 2, I don't think the graphics are as good, is that it's still a cool place. Prague is a really cool place in the world. And I really think that Jensen still feels like Jensen. There is still...
I thought the story, though, was like hooked you. Like, you can make the case for great game, but right now we're talking story and narrative.
I would say strictly... Speaking about the best story narrative and why I nominated these two games is I would say strictly on that it's a better story, and maybe I'm hurting my Dishonored argument, but it's because if Dishonored doesn't have as good of a story as the first one, this is not as big of a drop off. I still think it's a drop off from what was the one that came out on Xbox like in 2007?
Human Revolution.
Human Revolution. It's not as good of a story as Human Revolution, but it at least, I think, and again, I haven't played through the whole game, but belongs. It feels like a sequel. I guess I'd put it that way.
Sure.
It's not It's not as big of a drop off. That's
my
strongest argument.
I played this quite a bit, and I'll be honest, the story never hooked me in this one. I got kind of turned off immediately just because I never really got into the whole corporation espionage weirdness stuff. And the intro to this one, the intro to the first one was so compelling. It's like, oh man, I'm RoboCop. I've been made into this crazy sweet future cop against my will, and my character's conflicted about it. And
I can't use neuropathy because I'm so awesome.
Exactly.
And I kind of feel guilty about it. So I give everybody else it.
It was I felt like it was a tiny bit ham-fisted, the way that they did some of the social commentary in this one, and it really turned me off.
I will agree completely with that, and I feel like maybe if they had done that better, I would be wholeheartedly supporting this as the best story and narrative. I guess I'm not as down on the story as you are. I think at the very least, even going back to my comparison between Dishonored and Deus Ex, I will go back to this game because I'm at the very least, and again, I've invested time in it, but at the very least interested how it ends up. And while it is kind of ham-fisted how they did the social thing, and I don't think it's a great game on social commentary, I am kind of curious how all that plays out too, the divide between, the augmented people and the people who are not augmented. And there are still good characters. Now, are they, I don't know. Again, sometimes I feel like it's the opposite of Dishonored 2. I sometimes wonder, what is this person's role in this world other than to advance the story? Does that make sense? Like I'm like,
yeah,
what?
definitely.
I'm like, at least
I feel that way a lot about that game. I feel like a lot of those NPCs don't feel like they are real members of that world. They feel like they are text boxes waiting for you to prompt them.
Yeah, and that's the weird conflict I have between Dishonored 2 and Deus Ex. It's like if I could take the best elements of both, you could create a really good game. That's how I feel. Like it's just Dishonored 2. I know where people work. I know where they go to bed at night, where they live. Generally, where they are in the class and society, who they have conflicts with, how they can help me, and they do feel genuinely like
they feel alive.
I feel like they feel the weight of the world on them because they see it going. They see things falling apart. So, I guess my point being is that in Deus Ex, what Henry kind of said. I had a great conversation with this person. I don't know like what they do when they're not talking to me. Like they seem to just stand outside a store for a really long time,
Right.
And so that does make the story and narrative better because that's the role they fill. But it doesn't feel as real because again, it's the same reason that jumping through the 50th air event doesn't feel real. It's like you couldn't physically do this. Like, I know this isn't real. And secondly, I know that's just there so that I can crawl through it. I don't even know if it's providing air conditioning.
And I do feel like that kind of hurts the story a little bit. Well, anyways, that's a good summary of your best argument for Deus Ex. We have one more nominee in this category I want to touch on so that we can really quick get to the bottom of this one. And then we got 7 more categories to do, bud, so we got to get stuff rolling. So, Brandon, you have the final nominee for this. Battlefield 1. Tell us about it.
So Battlefield 1 is an interesting one. I felt that this should be put on, although I wanted to be on the list primarily because it does something particularly different. So if you have played the game, or most people probably bought it for the multiplayer, what the story does is it puts you in the footsteps of a bunch of different people who were integral to World War I. My focus primarily will actually be on the prologue, interestingly enough, because one thing that Battlefield 1 does well is it immerses you and makes you, at least gives you a initial understanding of just how like crazy World War I was in a very short period of time, and allows you to connect with the game very quickly. And then the prologue effectively was you're fighting through various, theaters of war during World War I, and usually you're not playing as a nameless character. You're playing as a soldier who has a name and a rank. Right. And when you eventually die, because it's kind of like horde mode initially, you get displayed his time of death and his name, and then you respawn as another character in another theater of war, and there's like slow motion moments where you really just make a very quick connection to the character you're playing at in mere moments. And that's not something you really see in a lot of other games. A lot of games have good build.
Sure. I'll give you that. I do feel like maybe I have played through this full campaign as well, and I will say I feel like maybe you're giving them a little more credit than I would, just because I do agree that it was very impactful, especially in that opening kind of tutorial area where every time your character died, you became a new soldier, and it made you feel tied to it, and it made you feel like, oh, damn, like, holy crap, a lot of people died in this war. And then in the campaign, for some reason, they kept that thing, even though your character persists. Like, you die and you just go back to your last save. You're not a new soldier,
Yeah, and that's what it's a new concept that they didn't really monopolize on. I felt.
I don't know why not. I thought that was brilliant.
I know it was amazing, and they just didn't monopolize on it.
They could have done a cool thing in the credits with it too.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because I do. I don't think it's the absolute best. Like, it's in my nomination list for being innovative in that facet, but it doesn't have the whole facet. I just wanted it to be known that was actually a good job, and kudos for them for pulling it off. In terms of like actual story material, it's kind of hard for me to say offhand because it's hard for me to see. Like, Battlefield 1 was good, but like Firewatch for me kind of hits more home for me.
Yeah.
But I guess if I were to have to choose one, I would say, and this is going to surprise both of you guys. Quantum Break. Just gonna throw that one out there.
Oh, hey!
Wow, really?
That TV show one?
Yeah. And the reason, and I'm not gonna get into story. I'm not gonna get deep
in the story narrative section.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get in the story narrative section. But from a conceptual standpoint, even though I personally don't think it's the best on the list, I feel like they really reached out and tried something different, which is what the gaming community needs. You always need constant innovation to keep the ball rolling.
Sure.
And their concept of having different acts and then incorporating a full episode that actually reflects your actions, like explicitly, interestingly enough, was a really good idea. It wasn't perfect. Even though it was initially jarring, the fact that I would be playing for 45 minutes and then would have to, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and have to stop and watch a 20-minute episode.
Yeah.
I was just like, I still felt compelled to like continue so I could see the next episode. And I feel like that's the reason ultimately why I thought it was relatively innovative. Because in those episodes, those 20-minute to 30-minute episodes between acts, like the actions that you actually took in that 45 minutes, 2 hours during that act actually came to play in a live action event. I mean, in a live action show. And even though it's not a perfect system, I think ultimately it should be at least, we should talk about it because, I want to see more of stuff like that in the future because, change the dynamic of how games are played to an extent.
Sure, I definitely agree. I hope to see something a little bit more effective, though, going forward, because I have to say, like, it seemed like it was a lot of binary choices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, even the little things that you did came up in episodes. And I'm like, really?
That's
that
nice.
little thing I did? Like, I just went to a chalkboard and just wrote 3 numbers, and people were talking about that because somebody just strolled in the room.
That is neat.
I was like, oh, God, and they were just like, minor characters talking about something. I'm like, holy crap, that's amazing. But like I said, you are correct. It's not perfect, but I would like to see it expounded upon and see if people can refine that. That's
fair enough.
Like trying something new.
Fair enough. I think it totally makes the list. I don't know that it's going to be our number 1, though.
Yeah, I can see you coming from there.
Especially just because I couldn't even watch a Let's Play of it because I don't like the movie episode or the TV episode thing. It just rubs me the wrong way. Maybe once it's fully married to the game a little better and doesn't feel quite so much like a break. But for me personally, I think Quantum Break was solid, but it's not like I hear people ranting and raving about it,
Yeah, I agree with you completely there. I think that I feel like, as I said earlier in an earlier episode, this only true crime was the fact that it was launched in the Microsoft Store.
Sure. Yeah. And not to be that guy, but now I'm going to go down the list here, unless one of you wants to try and argue Firewatch with me.
I'm not. Even though I nominated 2 games I really like, especially Dishonored 2, I'm not going to stand up for them. So
are these both games? Yeah, I think Dishonored 2 is great, but I think it's more of a world building thing than a narrative thing that it does well. And I feel kind of similarly to, Deus Ex, I understand that you really like that game. Personally, I respectfully disagree, but I hear where you're coming from, and I can see why that would be compelling.
To be fair, I loved that game until Dishonored 2 came out.
Yeah, and then, if it was really a compelling story, you probably would have finished that first.
Right, completely. So Firewatch sounds good to me.
Brandon, you have any? You want to make an argument for Battlefield 1 or Quantum Break here?
No, I feel like they're both compelling. I love Quantum Break, but at the same time, it's an unrefined art. It's a new art, but it's unrefined, and I like to see expounded on. In Battlefield 1, it was a major sell for me, but since they didn't expound on that style of gameplay where you make those quick connections and move on, where the war is the character, kind of just falls barely short.
Fair enough. And I think that some of the less realistic stuff kind of hurt it as well. Yeah,
that whole climbing a mountain thing with a minigun.
That was a bit much. It was fun as hell, but it's just not like I lost that feeling of like this is a a piece of history.
Yeah, it was a fine line, but they did what they could, and I appreciate that.
Definitely. Solid game, worth being on the list, but I think that we're all in consensus that this year our best story or narrative is going to go to Firewatch.
Yay.
All right, I'll take it.
Excellent. Awesome. So 1 down, 7 to go.
Next roll with it.
We have the best new property, no sequels allowed. So our nominees for this category are Super Hot, The Division, Overwatch, and Stardew Valley. First things first, let's talk a little bit about Super Hot. This is a game that I really enjoyed. Brandon, you played Super Hot as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and I was actually kind of initially surprised that it was on the list because I was kind of like, didn't I play this like before I moved here? And it turns out that it did. I completely forgot about this game. This actually came out initially as a kind of a contest tool.
Yeah, it was from a dev jam, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a dev jam where they had like 7 days to make a functional first-person shooter. and it turned out really well. I don't know if it won. I didn't follow it too closely. But eventually, the devs actually released it as a web-based game.
Oh, so did you actually play the web game?
Yeah, I remember playing the web game, and I remember liking it a lot because it was such an interesting concept. In case anybody's wondering exactly what this concept is, it is what I would define kind of initially bare bones shooter, but as you move, time dilates with your movement. So if you're moving,
if you're standing still, time stands
really
still.
stops. So it's almost like a super weird hybrid turn-based like.
It's red light, green light with guns.
Yeah, there we go. That's the best way to pull it.
That's how the kids should play.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to watch, and even though it has some of the most, it has very simplistic graphics and textures. The way that it's been done, like where like if you hit an enemy, blood or something that looks like blood blossoms out like flowers, and they slowly disintegrate. I'm like, that's super cool stuff.
Yeah, it is cool the way they break apart, like with that simple polygonal style. Plus, I really liked the story of this game, too. I mean, I'm not going to get into it because this is not the story category, but it was definitely compelling. The thing that kept me playing this game to the end was wanting to find out the mystery and unravel the next, like, twist. So I definitely was intrigued by this game and got hooked by the story more so than anything else, even though I really do like the combat as well.
Yeah, so I didn't really play it after it actually got crowdfunded. It was a very successful crowdfunding.
Gotcha.
But the major sell for me, ironically enough, aside from like the amazing play style as a new IP, was the fact that at the end of each level they're just like super hot, super hot. Did they actually do that in the film?
Hot.
I just loved that.
Yeah, definitely. It's very cool. I like how they do a lot of the sort of subliminal messaging theming.
Yeah, I loved it. It was just so cool to me. But,
nice.
But it's definitely. Like I said earlier, this is a new IP, and it really is like selling so hard. It's just like a completely new style of game. I'm just excited about it.
Definitely, and it came out of nowhere too. I'm very happy for this small indie team that produced it. Next up, we've got The Division. So this is a game that Brandon and I played. This is on this list mostly because this is on so many other lists that I've heard this year. Personally, I thought The Division made some pretty good strides. So here's the thing about The Division. It had a really rough start, but after some TLC and a couple of expansions, I think it's kind of hit its stride. I wouldn't call it maybe the best new property per se, but I would say it should be on this list because we didn't get a ton of really, really original IPs from AAA devs this year. And I think that The Division, while it may have had some kind of a bit of a false start, it definitely recovered later on. And so I think it's worth an honorable mention at very least.
Yep, I agree too. It's always going to hold a soft spot in my heart given its location. Graphically, the rendition is very well. In terms of innovation, it's kind of a tough call. I do like how you have an ease of accessing a group and the dynamic that it gives you with a lot of the perks and stats that you can apply, and the fact that you have freedom to change it so that you and your group can be very liquid in terms of what you're trying to achieve in terms of group synergy. Definitely. Which I actually like. And that's innovative to an extent.
And let's not forget how much you loved the New York aesthetic as well.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. It's just always going to hold a soft spot given its location.
Exactly.
And they did, and I have to say, the only game that I can think of out of all the games I've played that comes anywhere close to the Division's rendition of portions of New York was True Crime Streets for New York.
Really?
Yes. True Crime Streets of New York was so good that I actually drove to my mom's job, although it was a strip club in the game. But it had the park right next to it. It even had the bus stop. And the parking ramp just in the
was a strip club.
Yeah, in case you guys are wondering, my mom was a stripper.
No, I didn't realize that was that real. And I lived in New York. That's crazy.
Well, True Crime, the only thing that they did differently, just quick, off-topic thing, is that they actually went through the whole Manhattan area, like the whole Manhattan Island, and just like mapped it out completely and then put it in the game. And then they textured it.
Wow.
With all the difference.
Nice. But let's focus on games that came out this year.
Yep. So the Division, I like it as a new IP. It's a solid input into like an MMO-ish category, kind of like Destiny. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely showing that it has long legs and that it can definitely produce, provided the devs keep on giving it that love and care. Hugs everywhere.
Wouldn't say best property of the year, but might be one of the most fun games, in the next year or two, depending on how much more they go down the route of some of the new stuff they've introduced, like survival mode.
Exactly. And in this game, this environment's ripe for new styles of play. So I'm hoping that they keep on going. It has the framework. All it needs is the love.
Yeah.
For sure. Next up on this list, we have the real contender, Overwatch.
Look at Tommy's licking his lips. He's licking his
baby.
lips.
Oh, baby. You ready?
His lips. I can see it now.
I'm about to unload. You ready?
Bring it on, Tom.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me cover my face.
Damn it. I was all pent up. Anyways.
Tell us about Overwatch, Tom.
Sorry. Yeah, so obviously I love this game. The characters are great. For a game that doesn't have like a single player mode, they did release little clips which were fun and all that, but the characters kind of take a life of their own while you're playing the game, and depending on which one's your main and which one you spend the most time with and which one you research the most or whatever, they really do kind of come to life. And in a genre where Blizzard, I think this is kind of their first foray, and for them to have pretty good success without really missing a beat, I can't really think of anything where it kind of lulled or anything. The launch was good, and all these new releases are really good. Yeah, I mean, beyond that, it's just most shooting games are your generic soldier or your generic whatever. Even a Star Wars game, you're like a generic, stormtrooper.
You mean Soldier 76?
Hey, one character, and he's the 76th one. Makes him special.
He's super special. He's number 76.
But
the first 75, they were nothing.
Right, exactly. No, but I mean, the point being is that God, they've just done a really good job with this. This is a game.
You're not going to hear any arguments from me. I can't really beat down Overwatch much.
I mean,
I'm not going to look, honestly, to be fair, this is out of the group that we have here between me and you guys, I actually generally just like competitive multiplayer games, but I can tell you without a doubt that this is a great game. I mean, no hesitation whatsoever. I'm
in the same boat too.
Yeah,
I despise most competitive multiplayer games, and even Titanfall 2, which I like because of the mechs. I'm still having trouble falling in love with it. But I can tell you right now, I am in love with Overwatch, even with my preconceptions about competitive multiplayer games.
Yeah.
And that says a lot. And also the growth that it's had, even in its 1 year. We're already talking about pro teams and stuff.
World Cup.
Definitely.
I mean, the 76ers bought
how
teams.
much polish this game came out with, including the love and care that Blizzard constantly puts in this game. It stays current with all of its holiday specials.
Yeah, they did a really good job of releasing all the different holiday contents and stuff, and I think they really did a good job of just post-launch support in general for this title.
Yeah.
Honestly, Overwatch is in the top 2, if not the number 1. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to find an argument even as a person who does not enjoy these types of games.
No, I mean, I would say the two things that they messed up are Season 2. It was really hard to get into competitive mode because it felt like you lost. Like, you always took 1 step forward and 2 steps back. The only other argument I have is that they did a good job during the winter making sure that you got enough loot boxes to kind of get something. I wish during the Halloween season when they had some really cool skins that they would have, I love it. During the holidays, they just give you 5 loot boxes. That just made me happy. I don't know why that did, but it just made me happy.
Yeah, exactly. I know where you're coming from. I think they realized that mistake though, and that's why they changed it.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see that again.
And to be clear, they've also, now I've had some trouble finding, this is kind of funny. In some ways, this is a compliment, actually. I've had trouble finding teams for the competitive mode because everyone loves the arcade mode because they dropped Oasis in there because the 3-on-3 is really fun. Because the winter mode, even the snowball fight was cool. So if anything, it's taken away from something that they already had going. But regardless, I mean, it's not perfect by any means, but I'm not going to gush about Overwatch anymore because we have to move on, but it's really fun.
Well, fair enough. I don't think I can necessarily knock much of that. However, I am going to make a case for the one game that I think may be on par with this. And you guys can disagree, and that's fine, but I'm going to make my case, damn it. Let's talk about Stardew Valley. Listen, Stardew Valley came out this year. It is the indie darling that we talked about when I first played this a couple months ago. I absolutely adored it. It is a top-down spiritual successor to Harvest Moon. It's 16-bit. It's beautifully rendered. It's a wonderful farming game, probably, in my opinion, the best farming game that's been made. I really, really enjoy it. They have a great town with fun characters. It's got all kinds of stuff to do, from mining to combat to, relationship management to actual farming to, raising livestock. It's got tons of upgrades, a ton of post-launch content, a fantastic soundtrack. I mean, this game really was firing on all cylinders, and I hugely appreciate it. And it's still getting new content. I mean, the console versions only just came out, and while the console versions may have their own issues, as far as I'm concerned, this is a PC game first, and that's the version that I'm nominating.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think, depending on how I kind of budget this next year, I'll probably pick up this game, even if I do it on sale, and I don't think it's worth much anyways. So, comparing the two, Overwatch and Stardew Valley is a little bit apples and oranges. One's an indie game.
That's video game end-of-year lists for you. Yeah.
I mean, the big argument I have for Overwatch is look at the player base, 20 million. Look at the worldwide appeal. Look at the depth.
If we're going to rank it like that, then shouldn't we be giving like Call of Duty and like, No Man's Sky awards for best game of the year because of sales numbers?
Well, I don't know about No Man's Sky, but like...
those initial sales were really good, man.
The way I look at it is they took a Call of Duty or games that...
They took Team Fortress 2, okay? Like, take it easy. Listen, I'm all for singing Overwatch's praises, but let's not give them more credit than they deserve.
No,
Blizzard has done one thing for basically the entire lifespan of their company, and one thing only, and that's dip their toes into a genre they have no experience in and make their own version of existing stuff. I mean, that's what WoW was. That's what this is. It's kind of their thing.
Sure.
That's what StarCraft was.
And I guess my point being is that they fought an uphill battle, because I think a lot of people said, I don't like first-person shooters. I don't want to get into a game like Call of Duty or whatever. And they just charmed people. And I don't know. Beyond that, they just made it feel very personal, because they took all these characters from all these different countries and paths of life or whatever, and they somehow threw this all together and threw a grandmother in there later and made it work. I guess I didn't think that this would happen with this kind of genre. Like, I just thought it was either the people who like Blizzard aren't going to like first-person shooters, or the people who don't like first-person shooters aren't going to like the character of this game. And by and large, it seems like they've kind of hit on both sides of that wall, or fence or whatever. And that I thought was a very impressive feat. Again, in part I'm making this argument because I played Overwatch more than Stardew Valley.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I love Stardew Valley, but I know my audience here. I get it. You guys are... I'll give you Overwatch as much as it kills me. I loved Stardew Valley, and at least I got to say my piece on it. You know what? I just want to put one last nail in the coffin why I think it should be Game of the Year, but I accept Overwatch as the show's Game of the Year. And that is Stardew Valley is solely developed by a single person.
And that should be said, at the very least. That's impressive.
That's huge, because remember, this is up against Overwatch, probably one of the most heavily budgeted games of the year.
True.
David and Goliath in a nutshell, my friend.
Exactly. So while we're going to give this one to Overwatch, I still want to make sure we give a nod to Stardew Valley and appreciate just how close it came. Honorable mentions to The Division and Super Hot. Yeah,
I'll definitely give Super Hot some love.
That's going to do it for our Best New Property category. Next up, we have Best Use of Music or Soundtrack. Our nominees are Doom, Mafia 3, and Abzu. So first up, Doom. If you guys did not play Doom, it is wonderful, and I highly recommend it. Great first-person shooter. Definitely a solid title, and has some fantastic metal throughout. They do really good job of punctuating a lot of very momentous scenes with a combination of gun cocking sound effects and crazy guitar riffs. And I really felt like in Hell and stuff in particular, you just feel like you're basically in a music video. You're just this badass future Spartan guy ripping apart demons with his bare hands. The music was huge for that game, and I think definitely contributed to my enjoyment of it.
Even the background sound quality, when you're not just like neck deep in like demon gore, was just amazing.
Exactly. Plus, not to mention, I know this isn't technically music, though you could argue maybe soundtrack. The gun sounds as well as
don't get me
the
started.
enemy death sounds were so good.
Can I say that I spent 15 minutes with like the sniper-esque rifle, just like turning it on and off, like opening up the advanced mode, because it just sounded so good. It's just like, oh, it transforms and it sounds good. Like, oh, it was just
Doom
great.
had a great soundtrack. I don't think does anybody disagree, or shall we move along and we can come back to this one?
All I'm gonna say is Mick Gordon, the composer for all that, just wins. You win.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like,
He's also the composer for Wolfenstein,
exactly. Yeah, that was good.
which also had great music, though I would argue Doom was even better.
No, Doom was iconic, man.
Our next nominee for this category is Mafia 3. Brandon and I both played this game, and this was the game that you guys may remember that I said the second I heard the 2 songs they picked for the trailer, I was sold on this game. And I'll be honest, maybe oversold on this game, but it was the music that got me to make this purchase. And the music, so this is why this category is best use of music or soundtrack, because it's not an original score. However, Mafia 3, I think, nails its time period so well. The music is all greats from the 60s, late 60s. The like radio stations feel authentic, and like the ambiance of the game that they created of this sort of New Orleans area was just really well done.
Yeah, I just loved how it was. Even the pirate radio station, like Ghost of the First Time You Start In, just sounded like legit. It was just like, it sounded like a dude sitting in a shack with like an old ham radio.
Exactly. I was going to say, it reminds me of like ham radio.
Yeah, it's just amazing. The score, you have Rolling Storms, Roger Miller. I mean, it's just
Creedence. I mean,
Otis
there was
Redding, like,
so much. The Animals. I mean,
Johnny
there was so
Cash.
much good music on there. It was unbelievable. I mean, honestly, I could care less about the game in retrospect, but the soundtrack alone still makes this, like, I think absolutely sits on this list.
Yeah, I know, and it's a shame too, because the one major sell for this game was its story. But I think even though it kind of fell short in comparison to other facets of the game, but what really kept it together was how the soundtrack. You spent a lot of time in the car. How the soundtrack really made the environment.
Definitely.
Kind of made and in a sense,
it made the world believable.
Yeah, and you could connect to it because it's just good stuff. If you're a fan of good music, this is just
at very least just check out the soundtrack and look up some of the songs because they are amazing.
Amazing, yeah. Here's the thing: this soundtrack's so good. If you're on a road trip and you can't really think of what you want to listen to and you like the oldies, just look up just look up a YouTube list for Mafia 3 soundtracks, because it doesn't matter what radio station you play, you're gonna get something good.
Definitely. All right, well, Mafia 3 definitely deserves its position here. Lastly, for this category, we have Abzu. This is a game I did not play, but I have purchased on Brandon's recommendation. I believe, though, that Tom and you have played it.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I don't think of the soundtrack first with this one. I think mostly of the environment. However, I think in isolation the music is really good. I don't think it would give you the sense of place that Mafia 3, the music in that would.
Yeah, but that's what I like about the list that we set up here is that we have 3 like specific facets of different types of like how music is portrayed in games. You have Doom, which excites you, gets you excited, gets you pumped for like, ripping demons' faces off. You have Mafia 3, which is period sensitive to an extreme. And then you have Abzu, which is a completely different animal in and of itself, because it has an ambiance that is unlike
this is by the
anything
composer
that
who
we've
did
seen.
Journey, right?
Yeah. And what it does is this game in itself, the visuals, invoke something, but the audio invokes even more. This is a game that you can literally turn on, go to like one of the meditation benches in one of the biomes that you're playing in, and just let him sit, and you can just lean back and decompress after a rough day. The music is designed to relax you and allow your mind to wander with the game.
That is cool. So you're saying it kind of eases you into the game's aesthetic.
Yeah, it opens your mind. Like, the combination of the music as well as the visuals actually made me feel things. I always make the joke, like, I felt things. I almost cried at the end of this game.
Brandon was
words were
tripping
smoking.
balls, guys.
Yeah, it was insane. Like, and it's how impressive that, like, this game caters to your senses, specifically in hearing.
Yeah.
Because, music has tones, and tones can actually affect your mood. I mean, this is something that they did that they found out in Russia back in the day when they came out with that depressing-ass music during that Iron Curtain era. Like, people were, this game plays off of that to an extent, but on the positive level. Like, you play this game, you walk out, and you feel good. And even as the story progresses, when you hit your lows in the story, in the sense that, something heavy happened, you don't have, there's no words said in this game. The music communicates with you. So you actually feel emotions based purely off the audio coming out of this game. And that is insane. I've never experienced anything other than that, like that before, because I never played Journey. One of my favorite wrestlers.
Interesting.
So it's hard to describe, but if you like ambiance or a setting that audio can give you, that's not lyric based, but rather in the melodies and the use of specific notes and combinations, this is hands down one of the best things I've ever heard.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so case made. I guess I'm curious. Where do you guys think this lies? I'm gonna let you guys make your cases here really quick. Go ahead and try and take down the ones you think do not belong.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start with this. I actually really think Brandon said what I was thinking better than I could say. I mean, that game is spectacular for what I think I bought it for $15. It serves its purpose, and at the same time, and it's funny because Mafia 3 is a game that I haven't purchased and that I wish kind of would have been better, given that I liked Mafia 2. But I've seen the trailer, I've heard you guys talk about it. I'm familiar with the music in it. I don't know. I think it's something special to really, create a sense of place with music and make that feel authentic, even in a game that otherwise wasn't that great. So I think that's the power of the music, I guess, in that. Doom's what I expected, and maybe I should have expected what's in Mafia 3, but I expect metal and kind of this craziness and that it amps you up and basically does the exact opposite thing as Abzu. But I wonder how much it actually creates a sense of place, or if it's just fitting.
Are you kidding me? Did you not hear me describe going to hell?
Yeah, but I mean, you
go to hell to a heavy metal soundtrack. The game is a music video for a metal song.
No, that sounds
it's like metal.
It's like a Metallica album.
Think of it this way: if I was ever a baby shark giving birth inside of a shark, the song that I would be listening, the soundtrack I would be listening to is Doom. Just throwing it out there.
So
however, if I'm a butterfly wafting on the winds trying to find somebody to mate with, I'm gonna listen to Abzu. I mean, it's kind of how it works.
And if I'm a human being in real life, I'm gonna listen to Mafia 3.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of the list that we have right here. You have, and I love the fact that we're debating this because we have 3 categories that are, sparring out in very different directions as to what audio can do for a game.
Sure.
So let me put it this way. I think the music makes Doom awesome. I think the music is a good complement to Abzu. I think the music is literally maybe one of the only reasons why you'd play Mafia 3 if you just love New Orleans and love that era and want to feel like you're there.
I'll give you 2 out of 3 on that one. I feel like, as you said, Doom gets you amped. Mafia 3's fitting. Soundtrack is fitting for the time period. But Abzu, the audio takes you to another world. It doesn't fit the game.
I'll buy that argument.
I hear what you're saying, and I have not played Abzu, though I have watched some video of it and watched you play it and heard the music. I'm going to personally agree with Tom here. I'm going to say, as much as I like Doom, and it was a really good score, I think I got to give it to Mafia 3, because Mafia 3 is a game that I almost want to just recommend as an album, and this is the best use of music.
Yeah, it's tough because Brandon, I'm with you.
It's hard for me to disagree with you, but I am, because Mafia 3 as an open world game, its music fits the setting perfectly. I cannot argue that. It just, at this point, is coming down to my personal preference and what I look for in music.
I think my issue personally, and this kind of came up a bit last year as well, is that I have a bit of a sore spot for orchestral, very kind of broad orchestral ambient soundtracks. So maybe it's just me, but personally, I find that stuff a little off-putting, because it's not like you're walking down the hall humming Abzu.
Yeah, but at the same time, I agree. It is a personal preference kind of thing. Because me, I tend to shy away from most vocals. I actually prefer orchestrated. So it really is kind of a test of it really is kind of a choice.
For me, I should be clear. I don't mean like that. Just instrumentals bother me. Specifically, very generic sounding orchestral, like as in a full orchestra with strings and stuff. Stuff is what tends to bother me a bit. Like I think my complaint last year was Ori.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
So I listen. I respect where you're coming from, Brandon, and I bet I'm gonna love the music in Abzu. But personally, I think I gotta give the edge to Mafia 3 just because I bought the game for the music. I mean, Abzu is solid, but you bought that game for the visuals, and then the music was a pleasant surprise, right?
No, music was what made the game, I think, ultimately, because the music plays with you. It's relatively interactive. But like I said,
what do you think? Because I'm not gonna budge on Mafia 3, or at least I don't want to budge. I'm trying to figure out. You played Abzu as well, so I'm gonna have you try and talk Brandon down here.
Yeah, my chief argument here is Abzu is hands down a better game, but it's the sum of its parts. Like, this is such a weird argument because I'm basically arguing. To be clear,
I hear where you're coming from, kind of.
Yeah, so Abzu, all the parts fit, and that's why it's a better game. Mafia 3, its strength is its music, which is weird in a game that is shooting based, that's open world when people love open world, that's based in New Orleans when people love New Orleans, that is coming out is a sequel to Mafia 2 when people, I think, genuinely like that game even with its faults. And I guess that's the strongest argument for this game in this category. I'm making a very specific argument, not defending Mafia 3, but saying why it should win this category.
Right. Well, we're not saying Abzu doesn't have a good soundtrack. We're just saying I think Mafia 3. I mean, personally, I'm going to say because I didn't play a ton of Abzu, Mafia 3 Doom Abzu. That doesn't mean that it couldn't be Mafia 3 Abzu Doom in your head. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's the number one spot that's most important. Do you honestly think you can convince us that Abzu is the best music of the year?
No, quite frankly, not. Because one thing that is the thing that I will firmly stick to Abzu, but I will hand candidly, that is Mafia 3 the gold, merely because the music in Mafia 3, the difference between Abzu and Mafia 3 in terms of its music score is the fact that Mafia 3 completely captures an era that we never lived in. So we can feel the 60s in Mafia 3, even though the game isn't really that good.
Sure.
You understand where I'm coming from there?
Yeah, definitely.
It's just a score that was meticulously put together in such a way that people who have never lived in that area have only heard stories, watched movies, read books, and the 60s has that that ambience, that mysticism about it for people like us, and then it just captures it perfectly. Abzu does take you to another world, but honestly, Mafia 3 is a bit more relatable.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I'll hand it. I don't want to, but I will hand the gold to Mafia 3 on that one. So I'll give you that.
All right, fair enough. Well, there's always other categories that Abzu's up for, so no worries. Maybe it'll come back around to us. Mm-hmm. So I guess it sounds like our consensus is that the best use of music or soundtrack is going to Mafia 3, followed closely on its heels by Abzu and Doom. Yep. Next up, we have Best Multiplayer. This is a pretty big one this year. Our nominees are Overwatch, Titanfall 2, and Battlefield 1.
But where's Call of Duty, guys?
Oh, jeez.
Call of Duty. Been on the server for 4 hours. I haven't seen a single player.
Oh, God.
Should have bought that Windows Store version. Anyways, so Overwatch. Tom, you kind of made this case before, but do you want to just highlight the final points of multiplayer specific argument here?
Yeah, I'm not going to linger on it. So being very specific to multiplayer, I think that this game would not work if the multiplayer was not fun and was not captivating and didn't keep on bringing you back. They basically do every mode well. I suppose the big drawback is maybe that in certain payload missions, for example, will favor the people moving the load and some will favor the defense. I mean, generally there's some weird pinch points, but I think that's by design. I mean, it is definitely by design. And I mean, I just say they don't really miss on the gameplay. I mean, you're really picking nits if you're going, well, in certain parts you can move the payload faster. I mean, that may even be by design too. So
Tom, doing it again. Make your argument, not arguing against this invisible man.
yeah, no, the strongest argument is that they did multiplayer well. The game itself, the nuts and bolts are good, even with take away the graphics and all that.
What about the multiplayer do you like?
Yeah, talk about the meta. Talk about the meta. Talk about the fact that like every character has a place, and what matters isn't so much that you're good with a player or a class.
Yeah, no, I mean,
you definitely game, but you have to be good with multiple players, you know.
Sure.
So you can constantly get that dynamic.
That's probably the strongest argument, which weirdly didn't come from me. Not weirdly, but
I think
like,
also
I
will throw into the mix just a reminder of what Brandon said earlier, which is none of us, maybe Tom, I'm not totally sure, but for the most part, none of us are big competitive multiplayer players. Yet all of us consistently play Overwatch.
Yeah, true. But Brandon's point is very true. Like you cannot. It's nice if you have a main character. It's nice if you have strengths. At the end of the day, especially the way that the game is going and evolving, you basically need to play 80-90% of the players if you're really, if you really want to have a role on each team. Because
I mean, at the level you're talking about,
yes,
but not to play the game or to contribute at a lower, rank.
Very true. But it does encourage you, I guess, to play each player, and each player plays a different role, and it's beyond just a support and an offense and a defense. It's Bastion plays very different, who's a tank basically, plays very different than the sniper,
or Roadhog.
Yeah, or the even Widowmaker, the sniper, and those are technically the same. They're both defense characters. Sombra plays very different than Reaper. Then Pharaoh can fly around.
Sure. Yeah.
So that was a really good point, Brandon. That is a very big strength.
It's not just about like the tank. It's about the attack, the defense, the disruptor. Like that's one thing that Diva's good at. Diva's a good disruptor. She can boost in, start like hammering out with shotguns, and then boost out. And then there's a dynamic. Each of the players have multiple, can be used very fluidly in multiple ways. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. And since you can change mid-match, there's a constant meta change. And that is something that is amazing, that can lead to very unpredictable matches. And ultimately, a game that where it's just nail-biting, Yeah. And we're not even getting into, like, the team meta, like how team is,
or how 3 versus 3 works, or how 6 versus 6 works, or even in some cases 1v1. Yeah, no, I mean
this thing's elasticity and flexibility is just insane, and that's what makes this game amazing.
Yeah, and so you could have all the great characters in the world and all the great graphics and the great settings. If the game itself is not fun, it's not going to bring people back. The game itself is really good, even if the characters are what separates apart. Same with the individual levels, but.
I also love how the fact that you can play this thing on damn near any computer, which also
fair enough. And it's not like the game is a single player campaign that's selling copies. So
yeah, completely.
Exactly.
Fair enough. That's pretty solid arguments. Well, it's going to be tough competition, but next up we've got Titanfall 2. So I am happy to make an argument for Titanfall 2 because I really enjoyed the multiplayer in Titanfall 2. You guys know I played a good amount of this.
Yeah, I played a bit.
So Titanfall 2, really enjoyed the game. Total surprise. And considering that a lot of people compare Titanfall 2 to games like Call of Duty, I fully expected that I would absolutely hate the multiplayer. However, as it turns out, there are a couple features of Titanfall 2 that make it feel very different from a traditional multiplayer shooter. Specifically, obviously, you have your Titan, which makes a huge difference, but also the time to kill seems a lot higher in these. Like, you can actually take a couple bullets and keep running for pretty often. You can, someone can run out of ammo in their clip and have to reload, and you can then kill them, and like they haven't already killed you from the 2 bullets that clipped you, a la Call of Duty. And so I really liked the lifespan. I liked being able to actually do the team-based objectives. I did a lot of the advanced hardpoint, was it?
Amped Hardpoint, I believe.
Amped Hardpoint, thank you. I did a lot of that mode. I had a lot of fun, experimenting with all of the different boosts that they added, or they're like perk type things where you can get like your special ability. So for me, it was always the Smart Pistol, which I absolutely adore. The wall running translates fantastically to online. Didn't notice any major latency issues or anything, even considering all the motion that goes on. And I still jump in maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. So I really, and that's about as often as I play Overwatch. So honestly, I really, really was surprised and greatly enjoyed the multiplayer in Titanfall.
Yeah, Titanfall 2, we talk about the smart pistol. I'm just gonna throw out mine. Mine's either gonna be the Hemlock or the Devotion. Just throw those out there.
Nice.
Hemlock is like hands down, at least at the moment, the best burst rifle. But the Devotion's my personal love because I just love the ramp up fire. I think I never got off of the Thunderlord from Destiny. Honestly, I just love how it's just like, and I fell in love with that too. This game, I don't like nearly as much as Overwatch, but I do love the dynamic between pilots and mechs, and I do like their relative, widespread of different game modes. You have your pilots versus pilots. You have your last Titan standing. You have your deathmatch, team deathmatch, and hard, and then hard points, stuff like it's. There's a diverse set, and that's what I really like about it. And for me, if you include a mech, it's automatically on my list for game of the year. So I'm just saying that.
Fair enough. Yes, exactly. The inner weeb can't let it go.
I just love mechs, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I had to talk about it, but I can understand that people are leaning Overwatch. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we do have one more nominee in this category, and that is Battlefield 1.
Okay. Let me just say this about Battlefield 1. In terms of the three, it is more my least favorite, but I can tell you this. I have never seen a more majestic multiplayer. Like watching people, like I've seen video where people play it, and I'm like, holy crap, this is a game? It is a multiplayer. It's completely unscripted. It's just a thing that happened. I'm like, that is like the best looking multiplayer game in my personal opinion. It just looks amazing, and I can see why people gravitate so much to it.
Fair enough. And, I'll be honest, there's some really cool set pieces. And there's some really cool set pieces with like the Zeppelins and stuff that are unique to the multiplayer.
The Dreadnoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The Dreadnoughts and the destructibility. There is some really, really cool stuff in the Battlefield 1 multiplayer. I think my issue is it's Battlefield multiplayer.
Yep, and I agree with you completely there. One of my favorite things, I was actually I actually played a bit during the beta. This is one of the few matches I played without you during the beta. And I just remember playing the game and actually getting past that whole not having a weapon glitch when you spawn. I just remember playing on a desert map, and I'm just running up the dunes, getting bombed on. People are shooting at me. I'm just snapping left and right, and and it's just bombs going off. I remember while the bombs are going off beside me, I charge and stab a dude in the chest, and as I stab him down, I just see a horse jump over me with a sword slashing.
For sure.
What did I mean, I'm just
now, to be fair, for every that, I also get ripped out of the period piece feeling by a combination of, variables, zoom, 8x scopes in World War I, and
in case you're wondering, that's
and
not
the guys who have figured out how they can glitch crouch on top of a horse with a flamethrower, and they're just standing on the horse's back, shooting fire in all directions.
Yeah, or the guys putting tanks on planes.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
but again, I will say that
definitely innovated and deserves credit and an honorable mention, but I don't think that it hangs with Titanfall 2 even, let alone Overwatch.
No, I agree with you completely there, but those weird things about the game do kind of make it great, because let's not forget, when Battlefield 4 was in its heyday, I mean, every day I would watch a new video of somebody doing something extremely
Do you mean once the multiplayer was actually working? Because lest we forget, the multiplayer was broken in BF4 for 6 months after.
Once they got together, I just remember watching people jump out of planes.
Once Battlefield Hardline came out and Battlefield 4 was finally starting to work.
Yeah, I just remember people jumping out of planes, shooting another plane out of the sky, and then skydiving into a helicopter.
And as much as I like Battlefield 1 and some of the cool action shots with people jumping off exploding zeppelins and stuff like that, I don't know that it necessarily compares to some of the crazy shit you could do in BF4 multiplayer.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, those are our 3 nominees. I'm going to be honest. I am definitely leaning Overwatch for this category, although you guys could definitely convince me to push Titanfall 2 forward. But I mean, really.
It's so hard because I really like Titanfall 2, and I really like the multiplayer, even though I hate multiplayer games, and I love it that it has mechs. But, there's also mechs in Overwatch.
Yeah, fair enough. You know what? I mean, does anyone disagree? I mean, as much as
I want to disagree so badly. But
yeah, we got to give it to Overwatch.
I want to. I can't find a good.
Tom, any dissenting opinion at all?
No, Overwatch, baby.
Damn you, Blizzard, for making good things.
2 categories,
Yeah, the only crime here. I will say this in closing for all of this: the only crime that Titanfall 2 has in this situation is that it came out this year.
Yeah.
That's its only crime. And even
That's
then,
fair.
I
If
can
we
still
were doing best modern military style multiplayer, I would give it to Titanfall 2. Future style, because there's so many games that do that. I'd give it to Titanfall 2. But its best multiplayer, it's got to go to Overwatch.
Yeah. I mean,
people like it. The live audience likes it. Yeah, sorry guys, I'll be here all week.
All right, and cut. All right, guys, and sorry to cut it short on you, but we have run way longer on this than we ever intended. We were hoping to cram it all into 1 week, but looks like we're going to have to cut things here. We have 4 more categories for you next week, so be sure to tune in. The 4 remaining categories are Best Graphics, Aesthetics, and Art Style, Best Mobile Game, Worst Launch Disaster, which is going to be a good one, and Game of the Year 2016. So make sure you tune in next week, where you can hear the end of our list and also hear our opinions on a couple of games that we may have quite a bit to say about, let's just say.
No Man's Sky.
Exactly.
Aww.
Anyways, though, as I'm sure you guys can always tell, this show has been procedurally generated. If you guys have any thoughts or disagreements with our picks so far, please be sure to leave us some comments and let us know what you think. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. We hope you've enjoyed. Be sure to check us out on Libsyn and iTunes, where you can leave a rating or review. And you can also follow us on Twitter at PG_show. Also, big news, I have started uploading to the YouTube channel again. So, if you guys want to see some other gameplay, currently some Planet Coaster and some more Hearthstone, go head on over to lesser.noobn00b on YouTube. You'll also be able to see the latest episode of the podcast, fresh off the press. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, game on.